Wayne Bruce, better known as Bizarro Batman or Batzero, is a character from DC Comics created by Edmund Hamilton and Kurt Swan and first appeared in the comic world's finest number 156 in March 1966. Outside of the comics, this character has only had two appearances, the first in the video game LEGO Batman 3 Beyond Gotham, and the second in the animated movie LEGO DC Comics Superheroes, Justice League vs. Bizarro League. Before delving into this story, I must mention that over the years, there have been different versions of Bizarro Batman with different origins. So in this video, I will be telling you the stories of each of them. Now let's move on to learn about his origin. The story of the first Bizarro Batman begins when an imperfect clone of Superman named Bizarro grew tired of always facing off against the Man of Steel and decided to leave planet Earth along with the bizarre version of Lois Lane to find a new world to inhabit. After some years, Bizarro found a planet whose civilization had mysteriously disappeared and decided to create a new imperfect city, which he named the Bizarro World. During his time there, he also discovered the technology of the original inhabitants of that planet and used it to create duplicates of himself, as well as bizarre versions of random Earth people. This being's plan was to create an imperfect version of Earth, where all its inhabitants would behave like him. However, when the Bizarro world was ready, this character realized that Superman always teamed up with Batman, so he needed his own version of the Dark Knight. With this idea in mind, Bizarro used a machine to create Bizarro Batman, who was completely opposite to the Batman we all know. Conveniently, right after this, Bizarro learned that Batman and Superman were going to space to complete a mission on an alien planet. Seizing the opportunity, Bizarro and Bizarro Batman traveled to Earth to try to take the place of Batman and Superman. As expected, these two characters did a terrible job trying to be heroes, and all they managed to do was cause chaos in Metropolis and Gotham City. Fortunately, by this time, the real Batman and Superman had returned to Earth. However, despite their attempts to stop their bizarre counterparts, these copies moved too quickly, destroying everything in their path, so the two heroes had to come up with a new plan to stop them. As part of their plan, Batman and Superman traveled to the Bizarro world and began straightening buildings and aligning streets to resemble those on Earth. Luckily, this was enough to catch Bizarro's attention, and upon seeing what they were doing, he immediately returned to his planet to stop them, as he believed that Batman and Superman were destroying his city. Once Bizarro and Bizarro Batman returned to their planet, the real Batman and Superman managed to trick them into promising never to return to Earth. After this bizarre version of Batman continued to live in the Bizarro world and over the years had several minor appearances in some comics. However, it wasn't until 2005 that we were introduced to a completely new version of this character. This time, we met Batzero, the world's worst detective. Once again, this character is the opposite of Batman, so in his first appearance, we saw him killing couples in an alley using a pair of guns. Regarding Bizarro's origin, this being was created by the Joker during a story in which the Clown Prince of Crime temporarily obtained the powers of the villain Mr. Mxyzptlk. While he had these powers, the Joker became almost omnipotent and altered reality to his liking, creating, among many other things, his own bizarre version of Batman. And although the Joker was eventually defeated and everything returned to normal, this version of Batzero was saved from destruction by Mr. Mxyzptlk. Eventually, Batzero managed to encounter Batman and even tried to help him during a fight. Unfortunately, the very strange behavior of this being caused more trouble instead of assistance. Nonetheless, it's worth noting that Batzero was willing to give his life to protect Batman when he was shot by the Joker, a shot that was meant for Batman. Fortunately, Batzero survived this gunshot thanks to Bizarro's help, who somehow managed to heal him. After this version of Batzero has only had one more appearance, where we saw him trying to be a better hero than before, now in the city of Metropolis. Anyway, shortly after Batzero's appearance, another alternate version of Batman was introduced, this time simply called Batman Bizarro, to differentiate him from Batzero. The origin of this new Batman is very similar to the one I told you about earlier in this video, with only some minor differences, such as the fact that this Batman was also created by Bizarro using a new power called Bizarro Vision, which allows him to create bizarre versions of other characters. Nonetheless, we don't know much about this version of Batman beyond the fact that he is a member of the Bizarro Justice League, the worst team of heroes in the Bizarro world. Now to conclude, after the reboot of the New 52 and the DC Rebirth era, we met a new bizarre version of Batman, who once again is called Batzero. This time, Batzero comes from Earth 29, a universe where all its inhabitants are bizarre copies of the main DC Comics universe's inhabitants. This new Batzero is also a member of the Non-Justice League of Non-America, and although once again we hardly know anything about his history or origin, this character has managed to have several cameos in recent comics, both in Earth 29 and the main DC universe. Now let's delve into their powers and abilities. To start with, none of the bizarre versions of Batman have any kind of superpower. In fact, they don't even possess most of the abilities that the original Batman has. Although it's worth mentioning that as non-human beings, these Bizarro Batmans tend to be slightly more physically resistant than a normal person. Additionally, the versions that are clones of Bizarro are also vulnerable to blue kryptonite, exposure to which weakens them and causes intense pain. As if that weren't enough, all of them are much less intelligent than a normal human, and in most cases, it's not even possible to have a coherent conversation with them. As an interesting tidbit, much like Bizarro, these Batmans tend to speak by saying the opposite of what they mean. For example, if a Batzero says he hates you, it means he loves you. Unfortunately, this way of speaking only makes understanding the Bizarros more difficult. Finally, one thing they have in common with the original Batman is the use of the Bat Belt. Unfortunately, these bizarre versions usually only carry useless objects in their belts, such as banana peels, ashes, rusty nails, used mask gum, and other trash. Batzero is undoubtedly a quite strange version of Batman, and while he might not be the most popular variant, it's always interesting to get to know another version of the Dark Knight. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future content. See you next time.